Good morning. Welcome. I got everything early finally started for once. So I'm just going to grab the things for our session today. But good morning and happy Friday, everyone. We'll start at 9 o'clock at the top of the hour. So you got a few minutes to just hang out, relax, grab some coffee, grab some breakfast, go to the bathroom if you've been sitting for a long time. All right. We've got some meat. We'll go with cotton bone. Go with produce. Okay. Grabbed all my stuff, so we just got some time to chit chat. How's everybody doing this morning? You can either drop it in the chat, or if you just want to come off mute, absolutely totally fine. We still got a few minutes to kill, give some opportunity for everybody to hop in and join.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Amy. Thanks for asking. Feel a little bit more prepared this time around. Feel like usually I'm scrambling at the last minute. I'm like, oh crap, it's 9 o'clock. Like, we gotta go live. So I'm actually really excited about this topic. I am not somebody who is skilled at grilling, so I had to do a lot of research for this topic in particular. So I hope you guys learned something from it today, because I definitely learned a lot doing some research. So, and I really wanted it to be a surprise, but I couldn't pull it together this month. But I am looking at how we could possibly do Friday Morning Fuel, but like outside. I know it's a little bit more involved for like AV and setup and stuff like that. So I would really like to bring it forth eventually. That's my vision. That's my gift to you guys, especially as it's like nice outside right now. Like really would love to do some kind of outdoor version of that, and I just couldn't pull it together this month. But stay tuned. I will definitely let you guys know when that comes about, if it comes about. All right, it is 8:59 on one clock. It's 9 o'clock on the other one. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and kick things off. So good morning, everybody. If you're tuning in on Instagram, good morning. Or if you're tuning in on Teams, also, thanks for being here. Glad that you found us. I'm Coach Mary. I do Friday Morning Fuel every Friday morning. Sorry, not every Friday morning. Excuse me. Let's back that up. The first Friday of the month, we do a 20 to 25 minute segment about cooking, nutrition, a little bit of demo, a little bit of education. So thank you so much for being here. Every month we rotate through a different theme. So if there's a theme you'd really like to see, feel free to shoot me an email, drop it in the chat, message us. I'm always looking for new ideas to bring for you guys. So this month we're going to be talking about grilling. So as it's getting warmer and nicer outside, depending on where you are located and based, a lot of people turn to cooking outdoors just to, one, save some energy, and two, probably just reduce the ambient temperature in the household. But also there is just something about summer that really comes from cooking food out on a grill. So today, what we're going to dive into, we're going to talk about first the science of cooking with heat. So yes, we're going to get a little bit sciencey. I'm going to keep it very elementary because I had to do a lot of research for this. We're going to talk about the different kinds of grills that are available that you can purchase, some of the features of each, kind of pros and cons of each one as well. We'll also talk about how grilling food can impact your health. So we'll explore some of the research that's currently available there. And then lastly, we are going to do a little bit of cooking. I have a grill pan. I do not have a grill, but I have a grill pan that I'm currently preheating on our stovetop to get that nice and hot and ready for when we dive into our cooking piece. So with that being said, let's talk about some very basic science concepts. We're going to talk about energy and we're going to talk about temperature today. So the idea of cooking heat, cooking food, there are 3 different ways that energy, heat, cooks our food. So those 3 are going to be conduction, convection, and radiation. So even if you forget those terms, you can very much see that. And if you've ever cooked at home, you've probably experienced these very frequently. Let's start with the first one. So conduction. Conduction is a method of heating, or in this case, cooking, that involves the direct heat transfer from the surface to the food. So if you've ever looked at a burger or a hot dog or a steak and seen those sear marks, that's conduction. So the heat is directly passing through the heating element to whatever kind of metal or surface that your food is cooking on and then into the food. Next up, we have convection. So convection involves a little bit more about the circulation of air around food. And so very much so, hot air rises and cold air sinks. And so that is one of the big principles of convection. So if you've ever looked at a pot of boiling water, so it's sitting on a heating element. As it rises, as it gets warmer, the bubbles float to the surface, it cools down and it drops back down and it circulates through that cycle over and over again. The same concept working either on a grill or even in an oven. You have your heating source that's warming up the ambient temperature, and you have an enclosed surface as well that's kind of trapping that air, so it rises, it cools down, and it comes back down, bringing a little bit of moisture to it as well. So that's going to be more things like if you've ever roasted something in the oven, that you're using a combination of circulating air and circulating moisture to cook your food. All right, and then last one is radiation. So have you ever noticed that many grills have a lid or a top that goes on top of it? So part of that is to help with the cooking. If we just have an open air grill or an open air heating surface, a lot of this heat, again, as it rises, we're just not using that energy to cook our food. By placing a lid or a cover on top of our grill, that heat gets reflected off of that surface and directed back into our food. So very much like you put it in a microwave. When you microwave something, there's no visible heating element or visually you can see what's cooking versus conduction and convection. But your food is essentially radiated and cooked because of the heat being bounced off of the surfaces and cooking your food. All right, all of that to say is this is how food is cooked. Let's talk about the different kinds of grills that exist out on the market today. So let's do a quick little chit chat here. Do you have a grill at home? You can drop it in the chat, please. Are you the griller? Do you have somebody in your house who grills? And what kind of grill do you have? If you list the brand name or just the kind, that also works as well. So I'm going to talk about 4 different kinds. Yes, Todd, good. I'm going to talk about 4 different kinds of grill. Again, this is not really a limited list because there are many different types of cooking, and especially when you get into the higher end or niche styles of cooking, like barbecuing or really nice restaurants, there's so many different kinds of cooking tools available. All right, so I'm going to start with probably the one people are most familiar with, which is a charcoal grill. All right, so a charcoal grill uses charcoal briquettes as its fuel source. You generally have at your grill, you light your charcoals, they warm up, they create heat, and everybody is probably very nostalgic, very familiar with a charcoal grill. All right, Some of the pros of a charcoal grill is that it is very affordable. Pretty much any store, any grocery store that you walk into probably has a charcoal grill. They can range anywhere from just like $30 or $40 up to some really, really nice ones. So on the plus side, very affordable. It is also very portable because they are light and because the charcoal is both inserted and then removed when you are done cooking, leaving you with just the grill. So pros on that. It also gets extremely, extremely hot because it is cooking pretty much over a flame as well. So, and also some people just really love the flavor of the charcoal taste that comes through the grill. Some of the negative things about a charcoal grill is that the setup and cleanup. So again, mentioning that the fuel has to be added into it beforehand. And also if you've ever cooked on a charcoal grill, it takes a long time for charcoals to heat up. It is well worth the wait. However, some people just really need the convenience of cooking quick, and a charcoal grill may not give you that. The cleanup. So again, as the ash from the charcoals is created, you do have to remove that when you are done and properly dispose of it. And depending on what type of housing you live in, for example, I live in an apartment, a charcoal grill may or may not be legal to have. So it just depends on housing accommodations as well. Next up, we're going to talk about probably the most popular kind, a propane grill. I see most of you in the comments mentioned having propane grills. Yes, propane. First positive, it is so easy to use. You hook up your fuel source, you pretty much turn on your igniter, and you've got instant flames. So very easy to set up, very easy to use, and get it quick going and prepping your food. The only probably drawback of a propane grill, so we have the nice portability of a charcoal grill, yes. A propane grill tends to be a little bit larger, but more significantly is the fuel that you have to use. So a propane grill uses propane gas. It is something that you have to refill and replace, and depending on the size of your grill and how much propane you need, it could run anywhere from $20, $30, $40 every time to replace your canister. These are little cute camping stove ones, so not quite as expensive. And we're actually gonna do a little experiment towards the end to see if I can figure out how much propane is left in this gas tank, so stay tuned. All right, let's talk about some of the newer ones and some that are a little bit more out there. So I'm gonna talk about pellet grills, which you are probably more familiar as a smoker. And I'm also gonna talk about what we call Kamado grills. It's a Japanese style of grill, but let's talk about pellet grills first. So a pellet grill or a smoker, it uses wood pellets or wood chips as fuel for a controlled fire source. So versus your charcoal or your propane, where your grill grates are pretty much directly over an open flame, a smoker is generally going to have an isolated chamber that has a contained fire pot as well as fans to help circulate air and smoke, heat and smoke in that chamber where you are cooking your food. So obviously super delicious if you've ever had anything smoked. At least I think super delicious if you've ever had anything smoked. Probably the only downside to it is that they can be very expensive. Whether you get a standalone unit or you get one that is attached to a grill. Smoking is also a method of cooking that takes a very long time because it is not technically a direct heat source, it is more indirect. So many of you probably have tried smoking before and you know it takes a long time. You can put it in the smoker overnight or you get up first thing early in the morning so you can have it in time for dinner. So smoker, while delicious flavor, yes, can be way more costly and takes a lot more time and prep for your overall cooking. All right, and then the last one I'm going to talk about is the Kamado grill. So do you guys remember a couple of years ago when the egg, like the green egg, came onto the market and people thought it was just really funky and neat, like, wow, I've never seen a grill like this. You probably also saw the price tag on those grills as well. So in Japanese culture, a Kamado is a ceramic egg-shaped barbecue. It is that ceramic shape that holds heat very well. As well as being more egg-shaped, you have a little bit more depth to your fire versus a grill, which is a little bit more horizontal. You can spread it out. So it's a very concentrated heat. There's also, I was reading that it can be very versatile to use an egg grill, that you can use it for not just grilling, you can roast, you can braise, you can bake, essentially. So the versatility of a grill like that seemed to be one of the things that really stood out. You can also use wood or charcoal for fuel. The only downside is probably that, again, they are very niche and they are pretty expensive. I'm not quite sure the base price of just like the egg ones probably start at like $500, and some of them go all the way up to thousands of dollars. And then as well, because of size and space, depending on, again, where you're living and what's going on. All right, so we've talked about the science of how heat cooks our food. We've talked about different kinds of grills. Oh, I didn't even talk about mine. So I have a grill pan here. So I live in an apartment. So a grill pan is a nice, heavy, like cast iron, generally cast iron kind of pan. It has raised edges on it, kind of like a grill grate. So same thing, if we come back to where we started at the beginning with the way heat cooks our food, the idea of convection. So by raising the meat a little bit higher from that heating surface, now we have airflow. So we have a way for air to rise, cool, and then come back down. I know it sounds silly to say cool because it's a hot space, but you get the idea. It's all still relative. It's going to be hotter closer to the pan, and then it's going to be cooler further away from that heat source here. So I'm heating up my grill pan, getting it nice and hot. I have got some very wonderful, yummy skirt steak that I'm going to be grilling up here for just a little bit. And then we'll also go some veggies to throw onto that grill pan as well. All right, so before I get there, I want to talk just really quickly about some of the health impacts of grilling. Hello there. I have a cat at home, so she's coming to see what I'm grilling on today. All right, so first and foremost, I would like to say that in doing the research for this section, that a lot of the studies and the information that we have currently is based on animal studies. And so animal studies, while they are a great place to start, does not always translate over into human studies. So while I talk about things like cancer and carcinogens, again, please keep in mind that we don't really have solid, definitive research to really back up these claims in human bodies. But if you are interested in somebody who is very much looking out for their health, please take away from this what you'd like and do some independent research as well. All right, so some of the, we'll talk about just health risks associated with grilling. So when we cook food, essentially when you look at something like a steak or chicken breast, you can see changes happening in the color, in the texture. It is essentially creating all kinds of compounds. That is essentially what cooking is it is using chemistry to alter the shape of those muscle fibers and cell structure. All of that is to say that when those shapes are manipulated and we ingest those things in, those same manipulative properties can also transfer over. So very similarly of the concept of consuming fish. And so there is a great awareness around high fish consumption and mercury, in that the smaller fish in the ocean are eating smaller amounts. But as larger and larger up the food chain start to consume more from the bottom of the food chain, that affect compounds, which is why they recommend eating only fish a couple of times a week to avoid mercury poisoning. So same kind of idea here, is that grilling food just has an impact on the organic chemistry of it. So two compounds in particular that start to form, and I apologize if I butcher these because organic chemistry is not my strong suit. So we have what we call HCAs. Those are heterocyclic amines. So when you char food, these HCAs start to form. And so what happens is when it's exposed to a very high temperature, the creatine in muscle fibers, muscle cells, start to react and form this substance. And so in animal studies, they have determined that HCAs increase risk of cancer. Again, please keep in mind the frame of animal studies. Our second compound is going to be what we call PAHs. So that stands for polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. And so this is essentially when, if you are cooking over open flame, open heat, the juice, the moisture that drips down falls into the flame. The flame, again, as heat rises, comes back and coats that meat, and then we consume that meat. These compounds, again, they form no matter what. It's just a matter of frequency and exposure. You know, everything is toxic. It just depends on the dose, right? So this is not to scare you off away from grilling. And again, to keep in mind that these have been determined to be carcinogenic in animal studies, and we still don't know the impact of how it affects human health, and especially in longevity. Also, just smoke in general, we already know the high correlation of smoke being a carcinogen, a cancer-causing substance as well. So what are some of the ways that you can make grilling to be a little bit more health-forward, health-focused? Again, please take this with a grain of salt. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. This is just if somebody is really looking to be more mindful, I just want to give you those resources. By all means, I'm not going to stop grilling just because of this little talk here. I love the way grilled food tastes. I think there's way more benefits than there are risks. But some of the ways that you can reduce your risk for cancer and other just like chronic illnesses is, number one, minimizing grilling red meat and processed meat. I know that feels like a cardinal sin when it talks about grilling, because who doesn't think of like hamburgers and hot dogs when they first start to think about summertime and grilling? But we already know from human studies that high consumption of red meat and high consumption of processed meat does have repercussions on our health long term. Try to do more fish, seafood, poultry, and plant-based foods. Even in plant-based foods, so again, I talked about those HCAs, the creatine in like muscle fibers. So creatine is primarily found in animals. It's also found in plants, but in a much, much smaller amount. Grilling more vegetables. I could go on a whole tirade about like why just eating more vegetables in general, but grilling more vegetables. Grilling at a lower temperature and not charring meat. Again, so cooking faster. Oh no, it's looking for updates. Sorry about that. Always inconvenient, right? It's always like, let's talk about updates here. Cooking at a lower temperature and not charring your food, again, because of the creation of those PAH compounds. Maybe minimizing this. So if you are at a barbecue and you're looking for your hamburger, your hot dog, or your steak, maybe go with one with a little less char on it. All right, reducing cooking times, marinating meat before grilling, and trimming the fat off of meat. So I know, I feel like the fun places I just told you all the ways that like makes grilling and food taste good to eliminate those. But again, I'm not asking you to employ all these strategies. They're just an option here. And I realize that we are starting to run up on time. So that kind of concludes the education piece. I'm going to dive a little bit more into our cooking piece now. So I have pre-marinated some skirt steak. I have selected skirt steak because, number one, this is a very quick demonstration, and skirt steaks tends to be a very thin cut of meat, so this will cook very quickly. Number two, I have preheated my pan. So preheating your pan, making sure that it's nice and hot, is actually a way to keep your food from sticking to your grill. If your grill or your heating surface is not hot enough, food will stick and just stay stuck. Food is going to stick no matter what. However, if you are already preheated and warm, that food is going to naturally release itself from the pan. So sticking is fine. It's going to happen. Just make sure your heating surface is hot and ready to go. All right. I want to talk about my science experiment first because as I throw this on the grill, it's going to get very loud in here as moisture and heat come into contact with one another. So in case we don't lose out on visual. So want to talk about how to figure out how much propane is left in your tank. So I believe propane tanks have a meter on them, or there are devices that you can purchase that show you how much is in it. This seemed very sciencey, so I found this trick on social media, and we're going to give it a go to see how well it works. I believe the concept is based around, again, temperature and density, so that hot air rises and cold air sinks. And so propane at just like regular room temperature, like most gases, when it gets colder, becomes very, very dense. So what we are going to do is I'm going to get some hot water. I'm going to pour my hot water along the side of the propane tank. And the trick is supposed to be that I'm going to feel for where it's hot until it gets cold. And where it gets cold is supposed to tell me how much propane is actually left in my fuel tank. So with all the stuff that goes on social media, let's see if this actually works. I'm gonna grab just a little shallow dish here so that I have something to pour my water over as well. I appreciate you guys being here. I know we're getting ready to run up on time, so if anybody needs to hop off, feel free to do so. I know I ran out of time for our cooking portion today. I'm still going to cook my food if you would like to hang around. Again, I didn't get to prep my onion or my pepper. We're probably just going to do some tacos. All right, let me run some hot water here. So I have two tanks here. I have one that's fairly full, and I have one that feels like it's almost empty, and that's what I wanted for the sake of this experiment, to see if this actually works. All right. Give me a moment on the hot water. So while this is going, if you guys can share with me, what is your favorite thing to grill? Whether it's the thing that you're good at grilling, or the thing that when you go to a barbecue, this is the thing that you hope is on the menu because it tastes so good. I'm going to go first. Mine is ribs, hands down. It is a food that I do not eat all the time. But when I go to a barbecue and there are ribs, oh my gosh, it's on. It's on. All right, I got my hot water here. Let me get my glass. All right. You guys ready to see if this works? So I'm gonna start with one. This is the one that's very, very light. So I'm gonna pour this down the side of the tank as I'm pouring water all over my table. All right, so let's go with my cool hand in here. This is hot. I don't know. Might be because I'm using a really small one, but it feels cold right around here. It feels pretty warm up top and feels cold right about here. All right, let me try with the full one. And if you think this is really neat and you decide to try this at home, next time you see me in the fitness center, let me know if you tried this trick because I'm very curious myself. All right, here we go. Let's pour some hot water down. Cool. All right, moment of truth. This one is fairly full, so I shouldn't have to go very far down to feel. Oh, okay. It gets cold kind of right around here. I know it sounds silly because I'm like feeling through the label, but it feels cold like right through here. So that's about 3/4 of the way full. Nice. Some of the other like weird tips and tricks that I saw on social media, again, there's so much of that out there, right? The hacks and like how to make your life easier. And sometimes it seems worth it. And sometimes you're just like, I'd just rather do it the way that I like. So 2 of the other ones that I found were really interesting to me was using an onion to clean your grill grates rather than a wire brush. So I feel conflicted about that one because number one, as your grill is heating up and once it's hot, that's when you want to like scrape all of that stuff off so that you have a like clean, fresh clean relative, like fresh cooking surface. One of, I guess, the cons is that if you're using like a wire brush or whatever, you know, is that some of those bristles are going to shed and it gets down into your heat source. So whether that's a big concern or not, I'm not sure, but using an onion, so slicing an onion in half and kind of rubbing it along those grill grates is supposedly supposed to clean it off. No idea. The second one I saw was for food not sticking to your heating surface. So this lady took a potato, just a like raw potato, she cut it in half, and same thing, she slid that potato kind of along the grill grate. And so the only thing I could really think is the potato has a lot of starch in it, and so anything that has a lot of starch is going to retain a lot of water, and so I guess the water is gonna like burn off really quickly. I'm not entirely sure. It seemed kind of like a quack, but I would say for the most part it looked like the propane, the hot water trick didn't so much work in my case, but let me know if you wind up trying it. I'm going to officially conclude that as Friday morning fuel for anybody who needs to step off. I am going to just grill up the last of my, oh yes! Yes, okay, Brunch with Babs. Yes, that was exactly where I saw it from, and she seemed like really confident that it works for her. And if it works for her, that's totally fine. I don't know how it would apply to like a charcoal versus a propane grill, but yeah, if you have any like grilling tips, if you've seen any like reels or anything like that, send it over to @Lenovo Fitness. I'd love to like try those out. All right, as always, thank you guys for hopping on. For my Instagram folks, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream. For anybody on Teams who wants to stay and chit chat, I'm just gonna throw this on the grill real fast. Like I said, it's really thinly sliced. It should cook up in about like maybe 2 minutes tops as we go in. All right, everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next month. We are gonna be talking about pool and beachside snacks and drinks. So we're going to talk about what's healthy, what's delicious, and probably the most important thing, what's going to stay well out in the heat, or if you're out in the elements, especially if you're going to like the lake, the beach, where you're not going to be indoors or have access to indoors. All right, I'm going to shut down our Instagram live. My Teams crew, thanks for hopping on, you guys.